Are you actually participating in the habits that you need for success in real estate? Today, I spoke with Jay Papasan. He's an author, a corporate speaker, and an executive at Keller Williams Realty. And he went over the habits that every real estate agent, not just new agents, but every real estate agent needs to be doing in order to succeed. And it's a really interesting conversation. So enjoy the podcast. Good morning, Jay. Welcome to the RealTrending podcast.
I'm happy to be here. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, absolutely. I don't know who wouldn't know you, but I'm going to have you just do a little introduction about yourself to the audience.
Sure. My through line has always been books, and I unexpectedly launched a whole career in real estate in 2000 when I joined Keller Williams. Back then, there were 27 employees and 6,700 agents. Today, I don't even know how many employees we have. I think we're in 56 countries and have like 180,000 associates around the world. So it's been a bit of a rocket ride, but I've had the privilege of working shoulder to shoulder with the founder, Gary Keller. We've written a number of books together. If people have been exploring a career or have a career in real estate, they've probably heard of the Millionaire Real Estate Agent or Shift or the Millionaire Real Estate Investor. We also wrote a general business book called The One Thing. All told, our books have sold about 6.8 million copies, and I think we're up to about 44 languages now.
Congratulations. And you have a new book out. It is called The Rookie Real Estate Agent. And so what was the gap that you saw in the industry that kind of provoked you to write this book?
Well, just as a publisher, I used to work at HarperCollins. Like, we always analyze the market. And there hasn't really been a new traditionally published book or, not a self-published book in this category in close to 20 years. So people are still giving the same old books out. And a lot of people were getting the Millionaire Real Estate Agent, which is great to kind of like expand your mind, set your mindset, but it's not really a tactical guide for how to stick. So the inspiration is really, we hear this stat. I don't know that I can verify it, but it sounds accurate to me that about 85% of all new agents will be out of the industry within 18 to 24 months. So they come in with high hopes for a new career, to be their own business people. And because they don't get the information they need when they need it, a lot of them kind of cycle right back out. And I feel like we can do better than that as an industry.
So what kind of information in the book, if you were to write this 10 years ago, what's different about today?
I think we address some social media, right? So that was brand new back then. We address it tangentially, but it's not the point. So like what's actually surprising is how little the basics change over time. So a lot of people want to move past the simple, boring things you have to do to be successful, but they don't tend to change a lot. So like this actually came out of a series of questions. We were interviewing, every year we interview more people for the Millionaire Real Estate Agent. We have our podcast, we have all of the products that we continue to build around kind of our flagship book. And we would ask the question, what's the thing that you did your first year that other agents don't? And we're asking people that are doing like 120 million in volume. These are the biggest businesses in our industry. And I started to notice a pattern. They were all saying the same 5 or 6 things. And I was like, I think that in itself is a book. How do we give people the proven fundamentals so they can launch a career and our goal is to hit 6 figures in income in the first 12 months. That's the question we asked for the book.
Okay, great. So you've worked with a bunch of top producing agents over the years. So when you look at who succeeds early in real estate and who struggles, what are some of the patterns that really stand out for you?
I think they treat it like a business. So I think a lot of people come into this, a huge percentage of them, it's a second career. It might be a semi-retirement career, depending on where they are, or it's a part-time job. And the reality is they will announce that they've launched their business, but they're not really treating it that way. They're treating it kind of like a side gig or a hobby. And so I do think fundamentally understanding that you've launched a business, like you have to pay quarterly taxes, right? We all hear those mistakes. And then it's really about 5 habits. So it's not a lot of things. They build habits around prospecting and marketing. We call that lead generation. They do habits around role play. Like people think, oh, role plays for beginners. But if you interview the top agents, they're still doing it. They're still doing it with their teams. They still sharpen the saw every day. It's just 20 minutes. They work from a database. They treat their finances like, they do the simple things. Like they might have a simple P&L. They have separate accounts. And they really are very purposeful around their education. They're not just going to the class because it's got free donuts or free lunch. They're going because it's information they need when they need it. So like those 5 categories kind of add up to a whole bunch of success.
So where do you stand on databases? I've heard 2 different stories. I've heard get as many people in there as possible and, market to them. And then I've heard all you need is like 100 really good people in your database and to hit those 100 people, quarterly with something. What is your advice?
Well, we actually devote 3 whole chapters to the database. That's how important. Yes. And it was kind of an accountability moment. We've been telling agents for years and years that your business is your database. Your database is your business. And that is the only path long-term to sustainable, predictable business. So I would say it's more than 100, unless they are incredibly well-positioned clients or very high price point. But in general, we predict that about 6.5% of your database will transact every year. So if you just do the numbers, about 65% of people in the United States are homeowners, and they move on average about every 10 years. So you can do the math. So if you had 100 people, you might have 7 transactions. Can you get all of them? And is that enough for your business? There's a great article called 1,000 True Fans. I think it's by Mark Andreessen. And it's this idea that if you have a database of about 1,000 people that truly know you and know what you're in business for, you can build actually an enormous business from that. So I would aim people more towards hitting that goal. And we have evidence that just hitting 250 in your database is actually a tipping point. So if the average person knows 150 people, you got to think that realtors know a lot more, right? So can we purposefully get about 250 people in our database to start and then start communicating with them regularly?
Yeah, absolutely. So how do you advise new agents to kind of balance the lead generation with learning the business over their first year?
So there's real tension. Like you get your real estate license and it teaches you nothing about how to build a business, right? It teaches you how to transact the business in legal terms mostly. So there is kind of a minimum viable amount of education we need. So I think the motto I would preach is just-in-time learning instead of just-in-case learning. I think the mistake a lot of people make, and it's actually the number one myth understanding that we say that people have, is they think they have to know everything before they can take action. It's actually just the opposite. You need to know the minimum to take action. By taking action, you'll see where you have gaps. Like, I don't really know how to say that. Maybe I need to do some role play exercises and conversation exercises with an experienced agent. And then I go back and do it again. So I think minimum viable education and just-in-time learning is where to go with the resources we currently have available. I know we as a brokerage have a massive library of on-demand content. Most of our competitors do too, or there's YouTube, or frankly, there's this book. As I get to the place where I'm stuck, I now can jump in and rapidly learn the things that I really need to learn in order to do the thing. We've got to get out of this I have to know everything trap. It stops so many agents and it delays their income, right? You think about how fast we earn income in this business. If you had a willing buyer or seller day one, it could still be 120 days before you got paid.
Yeah.
So there is some urgency to get into production, and that should trump, right? Lead gen should be the trump card over education unless you just can't move forward.
Yeah, absolutely. And, there's definitely, I would say, an obsession with social media and personal branding right now. So how should rookie agents focus, visibility or skill building? What is your recommendation there?
Skill building, obviously, that's where I'm going to go every time. I do think that social media is a gift for new agents because it's largely free.
Yeah.
So it's an investment of time, not money. And that is really great when you're just starting a new business. But the question they have to ask themselves, and I've literally encouraged people to put a sticky note on their computer screen if they're at work doing this, and just ask the question, am I networking or am I not working? And a lot of times we get caught drifting through the scroll and we're not really working anymore, right? We're just now caught up in the dopamine rush that some very high paid engineers in California have learned how to trick us into. So I think I would go in with purpose. And when we're talking with people, like if you have an open house, you're going to promote it on social. It's a great way to tell your friends and everybody in your sphere, one, that you're an active, busy real estate agent. I'm doing the work. I'm touring this home. Those are great ways to kind of document your journey, to kind of build this very basic brand of I'm in this industry, I'm working every day, and you document the work versus spending lots of times on Canva, building out your little social campaigns. Branding can come over time. Let's focus on the lead gen. And most of the business, frankly, is not going to be in stories or reels. It's going to be in your DMs, right? Yeah. Which goes right back to, that's just another way to prospect. Hey, Tracey, I saw that your kid graduated this week. Congratulations. Are you thinking about maybe buying an investment home for them when they go to college? Like, how do I turn every conversation into a potential real estate conversation without being that guy?
Yeah. Well, and I have to mention this because this morning at probably 8 a.m., I got a phone call on my cell phone from a number that I didn't know. And it was Cocoa Beach, so it was close to me. And I thought, I'm just going to answer it. Well, it was a Keller Williams agent, actually. I think Sean Flaherty or Flannery, I can't remember. Prospecting, just calling me to find out if I knew anybody buying or selling a house. And I live in a neighborhood that there are not a lot of listings in here, and it's a desirable neighborhood. And he was the first call that I've gotten in probably 2 years. 2 years.
Well, here's the thing. We're now aware that TCPA guidelines matter a lot. Yeah. And we do spend a significant portion of the book making sure that new agents understand that. A lot of people think, I'm too small. It doesn't matter. Yeah. It does. Yeah. So we've seen even smaller teams get caught up in these class action lawsuits. So yes, prospect, but do it in a TCPA compliant manner. So I would tell you, we do a lot, and we actually teach what's called golden letters in the book. And that obviously you can do it through door knocking, you can do it through letters, but basically you're going to a neighborhood like yours, very desirable. You have buyers, and you're like, have you ever thought of selling your home? It is a very great way, relatively inexpensive way to get listings. And that is a massive jump ahead for most new agents to actually have a home to list versus a buyer to represent.
Yeah, and he was compliant. I had worked with him before, not in a professional capacity for real estate, but in a capacity through journalism. So yeah,
fantastic, good for him, and way to go out there and work his database. There we go.
Absolutely. So you've long been a proponent of models and systems. So how has Keller Williams kind of evolved its training approach and strategy for today's agent?
So I can remember way back when I first started, Dave Jinks, when he was still alive back then, we wrote a course called Camp 443, right? And it was like 4 buyers and 4 listings in the first 90 days, 3 months. But like we tried to put a very tight time frame on it and ask what are the activities they need to do to launch their career. And it's been called Career Launch. Now it's called Ignite. And I think we're on the 4th generation. But the same thing. If you ask the question, how does someone right now, I just asked our head of education, and Robert said, our goal with Ignite now is 9 agreements in 120 days. Very specific number, 9. I was like, okay, talk to me about that, but we're not going to go into it. But if you ask a specific question, it really constrains what you're doing, right? You can't just do anything and get 9 agreements in 120 days. So it focuses us on a model that's designed to get an outcome, and we have some evidence, or hopefully a lot of evidence. That's usually how we work. We interviewed 250 agents for this book. Like, what is the pattern of success? And so that's how we always do it. And because the industry is always changing, we have to kind of reframe the fundamentals. Because a lot of times you say open house and people hold their nose. I'm
Yeah.
sorry. There's
Yeah.
really cool ways to do an open house now, and they will actually get you a ton of business.
Yeah. And what about AI? And that's obviously a big buzzword now. You gotta get involved in AI in some way and automation. So, what are some tools that rookies can be using? How invested should they be in automating their business right off the bat?
Not that much. They don't have that much business in the beginning,
Yeah.
right? So I think of AI is not about effectiveness, it's about efficiency, right? How can I shave hours off of my work? If I'm building my business, almost most of my work is around building a book of business, and AI is not going to do that for us.
Hmm.
So I do think, though, building habits around staying technology kind of proficient are really, really important. So I'll just give you, like, all of us here, Gary included, we are experimenting with what is and isn't useful, what is and isn't practical. So everybody plays with ChatGPT. I think it's a good thought partner, but it lies like a rug. So you have to fact check. Like, do not rely on it to write a contract for you. We've seen attorneys get in trouble. So, but it can answer questions if your mentor, if your broker is not available. It can give you general guidelines, especially around public information, right? You could ask around, what are 5 things I should know about an inspection? Or 5 questions. Like, you can ask broad questions. There's a lot of evidence on the web. Just do a little fact checking, or at least raise an eyebrow, because we do know that ChatGPT will tell you an answer to tell you an answer. I like Claude for writing. I'm very picky about my words, obviously, and it has less of the hallmarks like the emojis and the dashes that you see that say, scream, hey, this was written on AI.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
you look at Claude, it's good for drafting. Like, if you have a listing, like maybe you ask Claude to help you draft the listing description, but then you have to finish it. And then I would just throw out 2 more to play with. I know a lot of agents out there are on the fly. So one app I really, really love is called Whisperflow, and it'll integrate with every single thing you have. It's an AI dictation. And so whatever you're doing, whether it's text message or whatever, you can integrate it, and you can just dictate what you're going to say. And because it's not just Siri or whatever, it'll know that the person, Sean, you're talking about is SHAWN, or it will learn it quickly. And over time, like, for a relatively free resource, it is amazing for speeding up your work. And you think about driving in the car, right? You could do a lot of dictation between appointments. So I think that's a great tool. And this is forward thinking. I have a friend, Tiago Forte. He writes about building your second brain. It's this idea of a lot of the knowledge we need, we can't access it. We learn it when we don't need it. So how do we access it? And most of the agents I know have 1 million notes on their phone. So could we level it up? And like, Notebook LM is relatively inexpensive. It will tie to all your notes. And now you've got AI digging through all of that for what you actually know. It'll only talk about what you've told it, not go out on the web. So it won't lie to you. So you can go out there and say, great, what are all of the documents I have around X? And it'll at least serve them up quickly. So those would be 4 tools I might be playing with, but don't get lost. Like, that's not going to be the difference between you making $100,000 in your first 12 months or not. It'll be a nice to have. And if you're learning along the way, it will serve you in the future. I do believe in the AI enabled agent for the future. They will have a huge advantage.
Yeah. Yeah. I need that notebook one. I'm going to write that one down for sure.
It's
Definitely.
Google's Notebook LM, right? There are a few
Okay.
out there competing with it. Right now, it's the leader. And that's why it's such a, this market is going to evolve so rapidly. The tools that we use will also evolve, but it's worth playing with it, right?
Yeah. I feel like it's kind of the app, store of the past, where we had 1 million different apps and it kind of funneled down into, just some really important ones that you use all the time. They kind of, the cream rises to the top, right? So
yeah, if you look at my usage on my phone, it's about 5 apps. That's where all of my power usage goes, right?
Me too. And I don't know why I keep the rest of them on there. So,
well, here's a hack too. If we're just going to do that for new agents, I set a timer every day. I can't be on Instagram for more than 20 minutes without it shutting down.
Yeah.
And that kind of gamifies it. Like, how can I use it for business. I sell books. I'm an author. I represent Keller Williams. How can I get in and out without getting lost in it? And on the weekends, I let myself play.
Okay. Yeah, that's a great idea. Should do that for kids too. Definitely.
Yeah, it's in the parental controls for both the
Yeah.
Android phone and the iPhone.
Yeah. Interesting. So there are a lot of new agents coming from second career or they have side hustles. Does your roadmap change at all for them compared to those starting out as their first career?
It does because, right, there's a certain amount of kind of minimum work to hit viability. It's kind of like how much runway does this plane need to take off? And if you're a part timer, unless you get extraordinarily lucky, you're going to need more runway. And so I think the number one advice I would give them is you have to be even more focused on the fundamentals. My wife launched our real estate team in 2009. She had hard constraints. She was going to drop off the kids in the morning and she was going to pick them up in the afternoon. And she worked basically from 9 a.m. to 2 p.m. and then after the kids went to bed. And so she still made 85 grand in her first year by doing just the fundamentals. So I would say put some constraints around your real estate business. And when you're there, be there. When you're not, don't be there. I also think ethically, if you're working a job, you can't cheat on your employer, right? So do it on your lunch break. Make sure that you're taking a half day if you're actually going to go out and show homes and not just be working remote today. So do it ethically. And the number one advice I would give them, if they really want this as a career, instead of spending the new income as they get it, I would start kind of a runway fund, let's call it. How much would I have to save up in order to resign from my job and feel really comfortable about going all in? Because most of the acceleration happens is when we treat it like a full-time job, because we're able to do all the things to kind of keep a steady book of business growing and not have those giant gaps.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. So the one thing, it's a podcast as well as a book, correct?
Yes, yes.
And
I would
so
like to say it's a movement, but we won't go all the way there.
a productivity movement. So
Yes.
how does that mindset tie into how a new agent should approach their first year in real estate?
Well, the habits of success. When we interviewed those top agents and asked what they did differently than other agents, a lot of them were building some really key habits. It's not a lot. I gave you all 5 earlier, and it starts with lead gen and role play. They were doing those things early, and they just kept those and maintained those habits. So we actually dedicated an entire chapter to success habits. And we broke them down. What are the things that we should learn to do every day? What are the things that we should do once a week, once a month, and maybe once a quarter? And when you look at it that way, like things like continuing ed, you really only really address in the fourth quarter of the year, right?
Yeah.
But it's something as a new agent you can't forget about or your license will lapse.
Yeah.
So kind of coming up with a rhythm and just putting it on your calendar, little appointments with yourself at the end of the month. Go look at your bank accounts, create your amateurist or use your bookkeeper on a P&L. How am I doing? Right? What does my pipeline look like? So we give them some core business habits to begin building early, because if they build them early, it'll serve them for their entire career.
Yeah, absolutely. So this is our lightning round. So this is like off the top of your head. What's the worst advice new agents still hear?
Focus on brand. I see agents spend an inordinate amount of time building out their website and business cards. Like, who uses business cards anymore? I actually teach agents don't even have them. Say, I'm sorry, I'm all out. Can I have your information? Right? I want to control the conversation. I don't want to hope that they will call me. But yes, you might leave them in an open house, but I don't hear about a lot of business going there. So do the bare minimum on the brand stuff. It really is going back to this. I'm just kind of delaying the work that will actually make me successful.
All right, great. The most underrated lead source for rookies.
SOI is always the number one, but it's not underrated. Everybody gets it and they knows it. I'm gonna go ahead and start with the people who already know and like me and trust me. I still think open houses. We devoted an entire chapter to open houses because it is kind of the ultimate combination of in-person prospecting, door-to-door prospecting, and marketing. Like, you get all of the benefits. And before you ever have a listing, most people out there don't realize it's not your house that you're holding open. You just look like a very successful real estate agent And everybody walking through the door, the probability that they are thinking about buying or selling is so much higher than bumping into someone at the mall. So
Yeah.
I still feel like it is incredibly useful. Our top teams do it at a high level, and people should not, turn their head when they hear, open house. They should dive in.
So brand new agent listening right now, feeling really overwhelmed with the market situation and just everything that's going on. What's one piece of advice you could give them to help them with their overwhelm today?
I think if they're worried about the market right now, it's actually an opportunity. My wife launched her business in 2009, just in time for the very worst of the Great Recession. But because she built habits in a market where it was harder to transact, when it got easy, it felt like she was walking on air. I mean, it's never that easy, but you're building the right habits. I see a lot of people start like in 2021, right? Where it was just like, how fast can I transact? And then business goes away and they have to build brand new habits. They don't know. So first off, understand it's a gift, but the number one advice I give pretty much any entrepreneur is goals before phones. A huge percentage of people, the first thing they do when they wake up is they look at their phone. And that means they're in their text messages, their email, or social media, which is almost always other people's priorities. And we teach this, we do this in our training. First thing, look at your calendar and your goals. Take 5 minutes. Like, what did I say I needed to do today? When you remember what you said yes to, it's easier to say no to the distractions. Then you can go out and go do the other things. But take 5 minutes, remind yourself of your current commitments and goals before you go out in the world.
Great. And finally, where can people find the book, The Rookie Real Estate Agent?
So it comes out on September 9th. It will be available in all major bookstores. If people are coming to our mega camp in San Antonio in August, that's where we'll have like 500 copies for the really, really eager people. But in general, September 9th, anywhere you buy books, you'll find Rookie Real Estate Agent.
Great. Well, thank you so much for joining today, Jay. We appreciate you.
Thank you, Tracey. It was a pleasure to be here.